Hey there, delightful makers. In this intermediate skill builder, we will be making the West Virginia star block. Now, this block can be made several different ways, but we are going to be making it with half square triangles and square in a square units. So that is the skill that we are working on. We'll be working on half square triangles and square in a square units and working on how to line everything up to create these rectangular pieces here. Now, the reason I chose to do the West Virginia block is because I wanted to create a block that I could applique my little Moth Man woolly flourish to. So this is the Moth Man woolly flourish, and when my husband and I traveled through West Virginia, we made a point of going to see the Moth Man statue. Moth Man is an urban legend that is unique to West Virginia, and I thought it would be fun to make a little mini quilt in honor of that part of our road trip and then add the little Moth Man applique to it. So this is a woolly flourish wool patch. I will talk a little bit more about it at the end of the video, but you can get a link to the kit to make this patch in the description below. So let's get started. All right, so the first step of our West Virginia block is going to be to make a lot of half square triangles. We are going to make 8 at a time half square triangles with these combinations. We're going to do I and C together, and then I and F together, and then C and F together. So 8 at a time half square triangles with these combinations. These two, so the black and the gray, the black and the green, and then the gray and the green. All right, so I have finished all of my half square triangles. This is one set, and they have been trimmed down. These are trimmed down to 2.5 by 2.5. And now I need to make my square in a square units. So we will have our B square, and we will put the D on the opposite corners and then sew and flip them open. And then we will put the G on opposite corners and sew and flip them open so that we have the square in a square unit. You will make 4 of these. All right. The next step will be to make the corner units. So we will sew the F and C half square triangle to A, and then we will sew them to B to make this unit, and then we will sew the F and I and the C and I to A to make a row. And then once we have this row and this row, then we will sew them together like this. All right, so that is how we will make the corner units. All right, we are going to take the remaining F and I half square triangles to make the pinwheel center. Okay, so we're gonna place them like this. We will sew these two together, sew these two together, and then sew all 4 together to make the pinwheel. This will be the center piece of the block. And then our last unit to make is the arrow unit. These are the 4 arrows that are going to come this way and off the sides. So we will sew the F and C with the I and C half square triangles together. I did press these towards the gray so that I can nest these seams. And then once we've sewn those together, we will sew this that basically will end up kind of looking like a scrappy flying geese unit. We'll sew it to the top of the square in a square. All right, so we have made all of our units. We have our corner units, there are 4 of those. We have our arrow units, there are 4 of those. And we have our pinwheel center. Now we are going to sew them together. So we will sew 3 rows like this, and then we will sew the rows together into the block. And you can already see how it makes this really cool star in the center. And then there are these little arrows also. One thing that I do want to talk about with your half square triangles when you sew them into a pinwheel, I pressed all of this open. So I pressed them open when I sewed the rows, and then I pressed the whole block open. And that has allowed me to have a lot less bulk in the center. So you can see how the center is nice and flat, and there's not a whole lot of seams. If I press things to the side, I probably would have had a big like knot there. So pressing the seams open for this block really will help get you a nice flat center. All right, so here's the block all finished. And some things that you need to work on and practice with this intermediate block is lining up these points with these points so that it looks like a seamless diamond. You do that by placing a pin here on this corner and a pin at the inseam at the 1/4 inch mark. And when you sew it, it will line up properly. You can see here, these did not line up properly. Even though I pinned it, I still missed it. And you can see why here. If my seam is here, but it really needs to be here at the edge of that point. So that is something to practice and work on. It is really bulky going through here, so go slowly with your machine so that your fabric doesn't all crinkle up and have a hard time getting over those seams. Now, the reason I chose the West Virginia star for our intermediate block for this video is because I wanted to find a quilt block that would work with the Moth Man woolly flourish. So this is the finished Moth Man, and I'm going to be appliquing him probably here, or he can go here. He can actually go in the center also. That's kind of cute since his green is just a little bit darker. It's also why I chose this green for the star, to match the green in the little Mothman. So the Woolly Flourish kit comes with everything that you need to applique your own Mothman onto the West Virginia star. Mothman is a very important legend in West Virginia. I write more about it in my blog, and I will link that in the description below. So now I have my West Virginia block and my West Virginia cryptid, and I can turn this into a little mini quilt that honors our trip through West Virginia and our trip to see the Mothman statue and learn more about the Mothman urban legend. So this is a fun way to kind of commemorate part of a road trip that my husband and I took. If you want to make your own Mothman, the link to the kit is below, as well as the link to get the instructions for the block. So the block is free when you sign up for my newsletter, and then the kit is in my shop. So now it's your turn. Go make something beautiful.